And today we will be talking about what top universities actually look for beyond grades. Now, why are we talking about this? Because if you look at a simple statistic, more than 90% of the students that most of the elite universities reject have a perfect score. Right now, the world is seeing something which is called the grade inflation crisis. Across the globe, a lot of people are getting perfect scores. It's getting very difficult for higher education institutions to really judge just from grades that do they have the perfect candidate for their undergraduate
I
course.
say that the grades are not important. I usually tell my students that grades are also important to some extent, but then is it what makes or breaks you is the question. Now, there used to be a time when we were in school and we used to have these gold spot and thumbs up crowns that were there, which had different cartoon characters under it, and we would exchange it for comic books, Mickey Mouse and Phantom and things. Today, I think what students are doing are they are collecting activities and putting them on their biodata, as if it's those cards that are there. So if I ask them that, have you been part of debates? Yes. Dance? Yes. MUNs? Yes. Youth parliaments? Yes. They've got everything. But have they got real quality time with their friends and family? What's that? Never heard of that. That's the kind of thing that is there that you look at. And, today, a lot of students are there on LinkedIn, and their LinkedIn profiles are so piled up. Very stressful if I have to go through them because they look more like, they're applying for positions of a CEO at Infosys, etc. Students and parents both alike think that if you're getting an admission to a Harvard or a Cambridge, is because you've started 3 companies or you have solved problems of climate change or discovered a couple of galaxies or you have a few stars that are there which are named after you. I think for everyone who is looking for a good institution, whether it is in India or whether it is in abroad or any part of the world, I would say that universities are definitely looking for smart students. Because, when the students are smart, it reflects on the university's performance also. I've been part of panels for personal interviews to select students to some of the top professional institutions of the country. Universities, they want to ensure that the panel selecting the students who will be contributing to become face of their institutions in their future, as innovators or thought leaders or problem solvers. And I will speak as an administrator and I'll say that I will definitely look for a lot of these qualities that are there in students that I have to admit to my universities. As I said, grades are important, but grades are not everything because in addition to grades, there are a lot of other things that are there which is required in a student. I would want to see in the student the passion with depth in activities they are involved with rather than the quantity that is there. 50 certificates are not what is going to impress me, but I'll prefer students who are committed to certain causes that are there which are meaningful and they are serious about it. Music, robotics, sports, community services, whatever they may be. Universities do lay importance on commitment in participation. So that's something which is extremely important. Leadership is something that matters and matters well. But what do you mean by leadership? Is it, being the school head? It is more than that because if you're providing, I think, mentorship or acting as a peer buddy to a weaker student, then in that case, that demonstrates leadership qualities. Being diligent and resilient is also something which is important because in spite of challenges, if a student is performing well, he matters to me. Struggle matters and so does learning from failures and balancing these conflicting interests that are there because it shows maturity and emotional strength. So In addition to many other qualities that are there, I would say that these are some of the important qualities that are there, because if a student has made a difference in teaching underprivileged children or doing community service, that student is going to make a difference in the university that he or she is going to be admitted.
And today, in almost all sectors of the economy, education is the key player. Right? Having said that, you were articulating keeping a focus on what the industry or the community or the public service is looking for. With my little of experience, I would put this way: there are three things which are very significant in order to be competitive in an era of a competitive world. And that is what top universities are trying to focus on. Number one, skills. Now, the challenge before the educational institutions is, by means of grade, when we are admitting the students, the skills that we are trying to impart or instill or build among the people, whether those graded students will be able to cope up to acquire those skills or not. That's number one. Now, the second aspect which is there, which is very significant again, is in addition of skill, the attitude. One may have the skill, but how to use that skill, attitude is very important. And when these two things are there, as I build the background, a competitive environment, the third aspect will automatically fall into place because of the skill and the attitude, that is a competency. It may be academic competency, it may be agriculture competency, it may be horticulture competency, medical competency, or any professional competency as such. Right? So therefore, I would put slightly in this way: the grades which we defend as an educational institutions are of a particular set of question papers. If there was any other set of question paper, the grades of those set of classes should have been different. Okay, we can keep a note of grade as a means and give appropriate weightage to that. So therefore, the institutions who are aiming to be the top universities, they are focusing very limited on the grades, and they are trying to have a one-to-one discussion during the phase of admission, and how they can be brought into the process of the andragogy which we are going to use, right? And that is what which is important. So therefore, I would put in a simple sentence: grade is a means, but to achieve an end, whether to the process of end, that is skill, attitude, and competency, so graded students will fit or not, is a challenge which educational institutions have to look in with a proper perspective.
A university has to typically prepare a student in three specific areas: the skill set that you have, the attitude that you possess, and the competency that the world needs. It's typically a balance of these three that might get you into a good job, or that might make you a good entrepreneur, or whatever field of work that you want to enter into. Grade could be a means, but it's not the end that we are trying to achieve. For a university, the core purpose of a university is to bring in a passive learner, turn them into an active learner, make them employable. If not employable, put them onto a track where they could meaningfully contribute to the world.
Basically, NEP 2020 as well as NCF has brought a dynamic change in the educational sector, specifically if I'm talking about school education. Yes, we have been discussing about the importance of grades as well as lot of other challenges which we all are looking into. And as inflation of marks, the discussion goes on. So as the aspirational marking, which I call it as aspirational marking in the board exams. There are a lot of challenges in the school sector for the same. Yet the schools are gearing up, and I'm very happy to see that the schools are taking care of skill education, competencies, as well as attitude by giving a lot of opportunities to the students to groom themselves. The Kaushal Bodh curriculum, which has been brought by ministry into school education, is emphasizing a lot on skill education. That is nothing but hands-on learning. Competencies are something which is not a jargon nowadays. Most of the teachers are trying to frame the questions around the competencies to build the students' attitude to look beyond only the textual content as well as the things. So, right from the textbooks to teacher training to delivery into the classroom and then assessment, all these things are making a lot of change into school education. At the same time, as school leaders, we provide multiple opportunities to the kids for taking up various courses which are given at online, as well as CBSE provides some free trainings. So that's how we are trying to equip the students. And of course, there are multiple avenues where parents are also groomed to make them understand to look beyond grades. To be very honest, it's not an easy task because ultimately the success is judged by the numbers. So the schools are trying their level best. Lot of things are done, say for example arranging lot of activities around mental health and well-being, giving opportunities to the kids as well as counselors appointments, their regular sessions, as well as discussing with them various strategies to cope up with their anxieties, as well as lot of other things which are going on in their lives. But at the same time, there should be a balance between the parental understanding about grades and their equality to the premier institutions. That is where the things falter. To be very honest, the schools cannot go beyond that. That is very clear. And it's a great limitation, which you all will agree, that schools try a lot, yet breaking the mental barrier for grades as well as the scores is not an easy task. Right from nursery to middle school to standard 10 to standard 12, a parent always feel that they are measuring the success of their child with the numbers. When the parents comes to me as as a leader that my child was getting fourth standard 98%, and in sixth standard he is getting now 85%, but they are not understanding the transitioning of a child scientifically, biologically, and psychologically into a preteen as well as teen. So all these factors matter a lot when we are grooming the children to understand about various perspectives from educational background.
My name is Amir Adam, a grade 9 student of Future Price Islamic Foundation School and a member of parliament. What is education? Education is the process of learning knowledge, skills, values, and a good behavior that help a person grow, solve problems, and succeed in life. Albert Einstein once said, education is not the learning of facts, but the training of the mind to think. This quote reminds creators, problem solvers, and young people with purpose to shape the world. Many students believe that perfect scores are enough to gain admission into top universities. Yes, grades are important, but they are only one part of the story. Top universities want students who show intellectual curiosity. For example, students who ask questions, explore ideas, and learn beyond the classroom. As Socrates said, wonder is the beginning of wisdom. Top universities also value depth over breadth. Instead of doing many activities just to fill a resume, They prefer students who deeply commit one or two areas and create real impact. Universities also look for character resilience. Winston Churchill said, "Success is not final, failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts." Students who grow through challenges often show the maturity needed for success. Finally, top universities want authenticity. As Oscar Wilde said, "Be yourself. Everyone else is already taken." The best applications are honest, personal, and meaningful. Beyond grades, universities are asking, who are you? What drives you? How can you contribute to the world? So, build yourself to be the best candidate every university wants. That is what truly matters. Thank you.
So, when we think about success, most of us immediately think about marks, percentage, and grades. But my real question is, does that really define a student completely? I did not expect this, but I have been learning Spanish recently, and I just came across a very beautiful quote that really caught my attention. The quote I found was by Pablo Picasso: Aprende las reglas como un profesional para poder romperlas como un artista. It means that learn the rules like a professional so you can break them like an artist. And this idea reminds me that while learning rules, studying and gaining knowledge is important, but it is equally necessary to develop creativity, originality, confidence, and independent thinking instead of only following a fixed pattern. Today's generation has changed. Students are no longer expected to just memorize answers and score marks. They are expected to think creatively, communicate confidently, solve real life issues, and work in teams. So, can we really decide someone's potential to become a genius or a failure in life just by looking at their grade sheet? Probably not. Okay, imagine being just 20 years old and landing a job at a $300 million company. That actually happened to one student in India. In India, around 1.5 million engineering students graduate every year, but only 10 to 15% secure jobs. Why? Because most students simply cram for exams and forget everything afterwards. But this student made a different choice. He thought that if companies are looking for real skills, why should I waste time just rote learning? And that one decision completely changed his life. I have this one inspiring example, which is Thomas Edison. As a child, he was told he was not fit to study, but his mother believed in him and educated him at home, helping him grow instead of limiting him. Later, Edison faced countless failures and even lost his factory in a fire, yet he never gave up. He simply said, "That's all right, I'll start again." So, if he had quit after failing, would he become one of the greatest inventors in history? Probably not. I have also seen many students who are not toppers but are extremely talented. They lead, create, help others, and think in ways exams cannot measure. Their abilities go far beyond marks. And this is what exactly top universities look for beyond grades: resilience, determination, and the mindset to keep going even after failure. Countless brilliant minds out there deserve recognition beyond grades because many students dream of becoming artists, innovators, leaders, and creators. So their potential cannot be measured by marks alone. So even if a student is not always an A grader, it does not define their talent. Thank you.
When you learn the rules, learn them like a professional for the purpose of breaking them like an artist. I think there's another similar quote in the field of law that the young man knows the laws, the old man knows the exceptions. So we have to understand that rules are made to be broken, but in a way where they don't hurt anyone. Because the most of the rule breakers across history have been the ones who have changed the world for the better. So if you really want to be that, academics is the entry gate that you will have to, go through.
Let me start by sharing what intelligence means, as it is the reason for going to any universities. Intelligence is the ability to learn, understand, think, solve problems, and apply knowledge to new situations. Martin Luther King Jr. once said, "Intelligence plus character That is the goal of true education. This teaches us that education is not all about passing exams, but about becoming a person of purpose and impact. In many countries, including Nigeria, admission depends mainly on examination scores. But many top universities around the world look beyond grade. They want students who demonstrate leadership and apply knowledge to new situations. John F. Kennedy said, leadership and learning are indispensable to each other. So, most universities want students who create change. That is through clubs, community service, innovation, and helps others grow. They also look for authentic passion. Students who genuinely care about learning stand out more than just simply chasing certificates. As Clayton Christensen said, questions are placed in your mind while answers fit. Curious students become innovative thinkers. Top universities also value education as a tool for social impact. Nelson Mandela said, education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. They want students who will use knowledge to solve problems and improve communities.
Are we really overrating the academic performance?
Academic performance, as I started off with, is not everything. Academic performance is definitely important. Now, there's a difference that is there between, when you're taking an admission to a university from a school, and then when you're sitting in front of a recruiter once you have finished or you're at the fag end of the university journey. When it comes to school to university, grades do make a difference. That's how it has been. But when it comes to sitting in front of a recruiter also, the knowledge is important. You cannot be just telling everything other than, what is the core competence that is there, which is required. So if I'm a law graduate and I am sitting before a recruiter, I will definitely have to understand and know what the basic legal subjects are. That's important. But in addition to that, what is important is the skills that are there which are required. So as a lawyer, I may be requiring the skills of communication, skills of critical thinking, or the critical thinking skills that is there, the analytical skills that is there. Today, when we are looking at the job market that is there, the recruiters want you to be market ready. Now, to be market ready, it is not just important to know what is, rote learning will not help you out over there. That basic competence is required, but you require something more than that. What is also very important for a student is that he should know what he wants. When he knows what he wants, he will prepare for that purpose and then understand what are the requirements that are there for that particular job opening that is there, or what is of interest to him. And then right from the beginning, try to be there fitting into that role that he wants to be in. Challenges are there, but you need to ensure that you understand what the market requires and to be market ready. I think that is something which is absolutely important. Student knowing everything under the earth is one thing, but what I would also say is it is important, or when we are looking at a professional course or in any university or wherever there is a panel that is there which is trying to gauge a student, I think I would look at whether the student has a genuine interest in what he or she wants to study, or if it is for a job, in what he or she wants to do. So you've got to be prepared for that. One need not have expert domain knowledge when we are talking about school to college. That's fine. But does that student demonstrate a curiosity in the subject is what is very important. And I think that is also very true when it comes to, the job front that is there where you are sitting in front of a recruiter. You're not expected to know absolutely everything. That when you are on the job also you will be learning to some extent, but it is important to have the basic understanding of what you want to do and to demonstrate the curiosity in that subject so that he or she will learn that. It is about student responding to that very important aspect that is there. So basic subject knowledge, it is important. Skills are important to be market ready. The jobs that are there, it is also extremely important. So you have to look at all of these things.
Absolutely. So it's a spectrum of things that has to be there, the skill, the attitude, and most importantly, your market readiness. For any startup, the most important element that they have in their ecosystem is the GTM strategy, go-to-market strategy. How would you take your product to the market, and does it have a product market fit? So that same principle applies to you as a professional when you want to get into a job. The purpose of these questions, the reason I asked this question is the importance of core knowledge. What you mentioned that, it's very important that a student has to have that core competency when they're sitting for that recruitment. The importance of that core knowledge is diminishing by the day for a very simple reason. Now, when you go to a chartered accountant or a lawyer, there is a 99% chance that they might be using an AI agent to typically answer whatever you have. Their documentation, their drafting is being done by an AI agent. So the core competency is being challenged at the moment. And when you remove the core competency focus from university education, it becomes rather irrelevant. That's the purpose of this question, that as an academician, do you think what will happen in the next 5 or 10 years? Because it is said by 2030, 80% of everything that we do will be automated and will be done in a much smarter and a cheaper way by an AI bot. So are we rewarding the wrong things by focusing on academics? Let's take the thought from Dr. DNS Kumar. What does he think on this? Because the most critical factor or core competence, that core competence is now being judged by the ability of you to learn and unlearn quickly. It's not that subject matter expertise. I might be wrong. Let's see what the University Vice Chancellor has to say. Over to Dr. DNS Kumar.
Mr. Gaur, I must answer one of the issue that you had raised in the first phase of discussion. Is it difficult to choose the students who can be trained to the next level which is required for the market? The answer is from both the sides. It is difficult because we have made educational institution as a factories, right? It is not difficult because there are regulatory councils like Rehabilitation Council of India who give only intake 10. Bar Council of India, they give very limited. There you can, sit with the students, sit with the parents, understand them, and what kind of, attributes that we want to build in them, which are relevant to the market. Such type of students can be brought in, who may be extraordinary students or who may be average students. So there, grade is not irrelevant. Right now, coming to a couple of aspects which I will capture from Dr. Bindu. She said challenging, right? Yes, of course, it is challenging in the light of national education policy, because students at a different level are going to come to you. Not that at the entry point only they will come. Because of multiple exit and multiple entry, they may come at any time. Therefore, the throughput which is required at the institutional level has to be very high. Otherwise, your economics is going to get disturbed. And this has still not started. Down the line, it is going to start, as a result of which the educational sector is going to have lots of challenges. Now, another aspect which I will buy from what she said is academic performance. Academic performance is not a marks. Academic performance is what you have, the content, the traits, how you can use to establish your own startup or profession, or how you will be able to help the industry. Couple of months back, I was in Belgaum. I was sitting with an industrialist, and a candidate had come for an interview in mechanical. The proprietor, that was a SME, the proprietor said, I am not interested in seeing your grades. You may be gold medalist or distinguished, whatever it is. There is a machine, you go and start that machine. Right? So, market is looking for that. Now, the third aspect which I will touch, you were talking about core. The core knowledge is very important. And this core knowledge, not necessarily it has to come from the educational institution. It can come with your peers who are working with you. Now, and it's not because it's going to, get reduced the knowledge because of AI and all that. The core knowledge has to be there. With the help of the core knowledge only, you will be able to bring creativity. There is a saying that man can do better than a machine, provided if he minds. Right? He can do better than a machine, but that creative aspect has to come in his mind. As a result of which, if you look into some of the top-notch management institutions like IIMs and all that, the corporate executives having spent 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, they come back to the institution to learn the core knowledge. As a result of which they can go to the next level of creativity, innovation, new products, new markets, and all that. So therefore, let's not to my sense of understanding the challenges, understanding the education, and enabling the market through this education is education not necessarily has to happen from the educational institution. So therefore, today, if you go to McDonald's, Cafe Day, you will see young people sitting with the laptop. And the people like me who have not gone to such places, we may say that they are looking for some movie and all that. No. They are trying to unlearn. Otherwise, they are not fit in the market. So that phase has come. Therefore, I said, and I endorse what Dr. Bindu said, it is a challenging task for the educational institutions to pick the students who can be taken to the next level so that they can contribute to the nation for the growth and development.
We know that for a school, the ecosystem is very competitive. For a university, we have heard from these people, the university leaders, that they have to look at multiple aspects to make everything work. And with multiple entry and exit, their challenge even becomes bigger because the economic model of the university keeps being challenged. So as a school leader, what one thing are you doing in your school, or rather would want to do in your school, that prepares a teenager for the future market?
Parents will look at our children as our investments. So we look forward for the outcome, or ROI, what we say, return of investment. So as a school leader, I feel we can make a lot of changes by putting the ambitions as well as aspirations on a card, where a Venn diagram is created where the child's own interest and capabilities match with his or her own life decisions, not the fulfilling of dreams of the family members as well as parents. This is where a big gap is taking place at right now in the entire country, which you all will agree. That's where the schools are getting confused for training the teenagers for becoming skill ready as well as aptitude. It's not that the children do not have aptitude skills and they are not matching with the pace, but the problem is making everybody understand and coming to the same page is a Herculean task for school leaders to bring them together for understanding this, because of fear factor which is deeply instilled in our society as well as in our mindset. That is where we need to work a lot, and that is where we can make a lot of change by understanding and bringing them together by various kind of activities as well as prepositions, by collaborating with each other. That is where the things can change. Otherwise, the pace with which the things are working and AI is captivating everything is actually dynamically changing the brain shape, which in turn is going to already it has started diminishing a lot of creativity and interest as well as collaboration, all those 21st century skills what we keep on talking, which has already been diminished by AI. It will degrade like anything unless and until we work on interpersonal relationships and mental health. The things will not be changing as we think for the students as school leaders. Thank you.
For universities, the job is completely different. For schools, it's completely different. And for a teenager, it's a confusing world out there. So for a teen, it's very important to understand, become the jack of all trades, but still specialize and learn specialization at a pace. The ability to learn and unlearn quickly will be your friend for your life. You are not going to see a life with one stable career. The World Economic Forum says that you'll at least have 5 to 7 careers in your life. And if you ask any adult on this call, if they have to change a career, what's the thought that they have in their mind right now? The kind of vulnerability it gives you, the kind of nervousness it gives you as individuals, as teenagers, you must have the appetite to deal with it. We run an institution called the World Teen Parliament where we do 3 simple things with teenagers. And what are those 3 simple things? And these 3 things we could identify from the most expensive schools in the world. If you right now go and check out that what are the most expensive education institutions doing in the world, they're doing 3 specific things. Even you as a university or as a school can implement them right away. And those 3 things are access, network, and opportunity. If you can give these 3 things to your students consistently over and over again, their core competence will increase, their aptitude will change, their skill set will change. But giving these 3 things, access, network, and opportunities on a consistent basis is superbly expensive. At the World Teen Parliament, we work on these 3 things. We give access to teenagers, to world leaders, members of parliament, CEOs every single month. We give them a network to connect with teenagers in more than 50 countries. And we give them opportunities to do and organize projects nearly every month from the comfort of their home. And we have been doing this for the last 4 years. And we have seen students going to universities like Oxford and Cambridge, where they use the World Teen Parliament portfolio to showcase what they have done. The reason I'm mentioning this is not to tell you about the World Teen Parliament. I'm mentioning this because I want everyone who's there on this call to understand, as individual, find access. As individual, find your tribe, your community, your network. And third, figure out opportunities that get you the chance to implement your knowledge, your skill, your aptitude. Because if you're waiting for someday in the future when you'll put this all together and you'll have a successful life, that's not the case anymore. Thank you so much, everyone, for being a part of the Blub World Web Talks. This was the 293rd episode.